We have some open seats up here in the front, so if you're still looking for a seat, please get over on this side. Thank you so much. I'm truly excited to be in conversation with all of you here. Raise your hand if you're interested in an ecology job or a conservation job. Raise your. Oh, yeah, okay. Same. No. But yeah, I mean, I'm really privileged to be able to be in space with all of you here today. So why don't we actually go around to maybe just briefly introduce who you are, the work specifically that you're doing today, and yeah, let's go over and we'll start with Miguel.
Yeah, hi. It's nice to see everyone. I'm Miguel. I use he, him pronouns. I am the director for Sierra Club California. One of, I think I can still say this. I'm the first male Latino within the 40-year inception of Sierra Club California to help lead statewide policy, conservation work, organizing work, communication, all throughout, both working with my team in Sacramento and the 12 different directors within Sierra Club in California. It's complex, I'll explain later. But, you know, just really focusing on sort of just the crux of everything that you're hearing going on in the environment, all the way from data centers down to endangered species work, preserving, you know, our protected lands and so on. And so a big portfolio of work that we can get into. But is there anything else I'm missing there? See?
I think that's great, yeah.
All right, cool.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sara Bliss. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the Community Conservation Initiatives Director at Mojave Desert Land Trust. At the Land Trust, I actually started as, I can't even remember what my title was. It was like, I think, Director of Conservation or something. But as we kind of talk along and like my career and how kind of things go is as you get specialized, you kind of some places you are able to kind of create your own role. And so that's kind of what I did at Mojave Desert Land Trust. My department oversees our volunteer program, but also our community conservation initiatives where we do a lot of work with community science. And then the large chunk of work that I do is with our tribal engagement and programs. And so, yeah, one of the things talking about ecology careers and maybe some alternatives is as you build up your specializations, sometimes you find yourself kind of creating your own path and your own job title that was not there before.
Hey guys, I'm Aman. I do social media, so I run a page called Birds of India, where I do wildlife photography and talk about wildlife conservation issues. Started when I was 14, so that was about 9 years ago. Sorry, my math is like really bad. And went to college, took up 2 jobs, left both of those jobs as of 5 days ago. And now just gonna do social media on birds and highlighting bird issues full time.
No, I love the sectors that we're all coming in from because I think when we think about conservation, we just think of it just as a linear path, but it's a very large institution. So, you know, Miguel, to start off with you, like Sierra Clubs is one of the largest environmental organizations, one of the legacy orgs that I see. And, you know, you have such a large team and different chapters. And I kind of want to ask you, like, can you share more about, like, what exactly your day-to-day looks like, but also how you really shaped into your role and interest? Because, you know, when I was a young person, I remember like I applied to like a digital strategist role, like or a campaigner role, and I didn't really know like exactly like what type of issues or interests would fit best in my skill set. So I would love to learn more about that.
Yeah, I'll start kind of just from the beginning, like where did all of this really come from? I was born and raised here in LA. I grew up in an environmental justice community in the San Fernando Valley, still there with, well, my parents are, in a mobile home park next to Van Nuys Airport, where at first I hated that place. And like you grow up there and you just don't understand, you know, why things are the way they are. Why do I have asthma? Why is it that every time a plane takes off, I can't fall asleep? Why is it that like I see no trees, but I like step right outside the gated, you know, sort of mobile home park, there's a bunch of trees and all these other little questions that you start asking yourself. And at first, like that led me like a lot of kids at my age, into this curiosity around science and STEM, and dinosaurs kind of took it off for me. So I became a paleontologist in my undergrad, and actually worked as a paleontologist here in LA for about 4 years. And you start to work on it, and you start to work with a lot of our tribal nations and indigenous communities here in Los Angeles, and you start to ask the same questions. Why is it that we still in 2015 cannot respect the rights of our tribal communities? Why is it that in these documents we are still seeing erasure more and more? And fast forward, I think, to me, where I work with organizers, communicators, strategists, policymakers, people from every single sector, not maybe having environment in their title, but working on a specific area that moves the needle of environmental or conservation work in a specific direction. And so fast forward now, from all of those different learned experiences of where are the voices for the communities that I grew up in included in that space, and fast forward to being a director for Pacoima Beautiful and working in communities in Pacoima, to now realizing that the volunteers and the members of that space were in fact the people that I worked for, to now being the director, very much kind of puts me in the same bubble of the people that I work with on a day-to-day basis are the people who live in those communities, who know what's going on, where I do not have to be the expert, nor do I want to be. And they get to guide the conversation of what's going on down on the ground, what are they experiencing on a day-to-day. And sort of my everyday, I go in, it's always checking in with volunteers on how that progress is going, checking in with policymakers and our lobbyists on just what is the progress of things and the inclusion of language, all the way down to how are we communicating so people that are on the ground are in fact understanding that progress, so we can move it forward. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I really love the transition of being a paleontologist and studying different sciences. And then you're I'm going to grassroots and then going into a large organization. And this kind of leads me to my next question for Sarah Bliss is Mojave Desert Land Trust. Have been there last year, and it's such a beautiful space. And I think, a lot of times when people are trying to find a conservation job, they think about, I'm just going to preserve this tree or this animal species. But one of the most unique important skill sets, right, is the partnerships with indigenous communities. And I know that we talked a lot about cultural resource management, anthropology, ethnobotany, for example, and I kind of wanted to learn more about how those skill sets and those fields of study helped you develop into your role.
Yeah, thank you. And so we got paleontologist in training over here, and my background is in archaeology. And so when I was first starting my career, definitely was not not even cognizant of these type of fields. I was going to school working in museums, or working in cultural resource management work. Laws and regulation of archaeology was kind of my wheelhouse there. Then I started working in tribal government. So probably for 8 or 9 years, I can't count anymore too. 8 or 9 years, I worked in tribal government, working in tribal historic preservation, as well as the environmental and also grant department for the 29 Palms Band of Mission Indians. And so that really helped me develop skills, not just in my background in archaeology, but a big one as I was talking with people were things in learning about grants, developing skills in GIS and mapping, but also how to apply environmental regulations and mitigation to work. And I was not looking for a new job, but for many years I worked with Mojave Desert Land Trust when I worked for the tribe. They were one of the few organizations in the region that reached out, probably my first year working for the tribe, of, hey, what can we do to help out? What kind of programs do you want us to help support? And so that really kind of keyed me into the organization. And when I saw that there was a job opening, I was like, I actually really like working with these folks. I don't qualify really for this position, but I know them, and I align probably 50% in maybe 70% in the job description. there were some things on there that did not align, but I went for the shot because I liked those people. I knew them. And building up those partnerships over the years really helped. Like even showing up to events and just kind of getting FaceTime when I was in for my interview. It was more casual than my other interviews because I've worked with them for many years. And then at Mojave Desert Land Trust, since I have my background in tribal government, one of the big things is recognizing the gaps for when I was working in that sphere. So I worked a lot when I was working for the tribe and how to do proper consultation and what are those steps and what are the things needed and who are the people that need to be in the room, and also best practices. And so a lot of things that I've onboarded or have worked and intertwined now with the organization are things like cultural training for all of our staff. So every year we get together and we work with other Native nonprofits and because we always get new staff or people coming in. And so every year we have a once a year training of the tribes in the region, best practices, and all of that. So I think a big thing on my career and my path is you never know where you're going to find yourself. But applying the people that you met and those special skills, you never know where you're going to find yourself.
Yeah, and I feel like you really eventually grew into your role, evolved into it, and I think that's really about, career finders is morphing into something that you don't see yourself fully there, but you can develop long term. And, Aman, I found your account when you started college, I believe. You were like a freshman, and you had this such beautiful digital platform on documenting birds, wildlife, and I kind of wanted to ask you, you as a young person, how you built the platform and created your organization, Birds of India, and also why it's so important to build a digital portfolio today and how that's really helped you in navigating your career.
He called me young. No, I'm kidding. I think when I was starting out, I just realized that I really enjoyed photography. When I was living back in my hometown of New Delhi, the closest thing to me when it came to photography was birds all around. Delhi is the second most bird populous city in the world, but I know in America we know it better as the most polluted city in the world. And I really wanted to bring that first fact to the light and let people know that India and honestly all of Asia is more than sort of the one-liner headlines that we read in newspapers. So I started doing photography, started posting about it, went to college, woke up one day and I said, shoot, Instagram just introduced Reels. Sounds like a great platform for all these videos I've been getting. Started putting those up. They did really well. The platform grew to almost 1 million people. And I think the biggest part about having a platform gives you the flexibility to choose what you want to do, when you want to do it, even if you're young and starting out your career. Like I said, I did leave my last 2 jobs. And I had the flexibility to do that because I knew that in the meantime, I can have income coming in through social media. And now I'm actually planning on going on and doing it full time. It's really given me as a young person who just got out of college and was seeing all of my friends apply for jobs and honestly get into sectors that they don't even know if they want to do or if they're passionate about or just because their mom or dad did it. Because in India, everyone wants to be a doctor, an engineer, a lawyer. But thankfully, that stereotype is now changing. And it was also about realizing, I think, that facts inform people a lot about things, but I think stories, what they can do is transport people from their bedroom, their living room, to a forest that they've never been to, or to a species that they may never see in their entire life. And I think that memory and lived experience of other people that you're able to connect with and be a part of on a little phone screen through Instagram or any part of social media has been really powerful. A single image can travel continents. I came here from India and my photographs have hopefully been reaching different parts of the world, and it's been a really good experience.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love that. And I think, for anyone out there, putting your work out there, you just never know who's going to see it online, especially a lot of people, they saw it, we saw it, I saw it. And, I think one thing I do want to bring the realities of the state of conservation jobs is we are seeing the ongoing dismantling of jobs happening from a federal level. We're seeing the tightening of organizations having to slash budgets. And a lot of people from different careers, from associate, junior, manager, senior, are really struggling and asking themselves, like, how can I be in this field that is trying to protect the earth, but also have a salary that is a living wage? And so I kind of wanted to ask each and every one of you, like, what you feel like, not just the skill sets that people should have, but some of the resources and opportunities, or even within your own organizations, of how you're creating new pathways for everyone that is trying to transition into this industry.
I like how they just like slowly pass the microphone. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. No, I think that's true. Like the dismantling, the threats to this type of work, like it grows. The best advice here is really like when we think about conservation and ecology, you have to think about it and redefine it as not your typical ecology that we're used to thinking about, where you're when you're in a hiking trail or when you are outside in nature, it's very easy to think about ecology as just the natural systems that you see on a day-to-day basis. But conservation and ecology has sort of expanded its definition to think about the people. Us living in cities are in fact a system on their own, and an ecology and a conservation system all on its own, inputs and outputs, right? How much food we bring into a city equals how much trash we take out, how much fossil fuel we use to transport that food. And if you were to think about, just how that then connects to the natural world and think about them as two systems, you now not only open up more opportunities for yourself in these careers to think about, like, how am I not just trying to go after a position focused on maybe, biology or on chemistry, but how are you now trying to apply for maybe a position focused on preserving the sanitation systems inside of a city, or better yet, revamping them? And I think that is like one of the best advices for those that are trying to get into this market and sort of seeing like, well, why should I, if there's a lot of constant attacks to like reverse endangered species, try to pollute our waters and so on? Well, again, like that is where you can still add to that work, but you can also add to it from this side where what are the driving forces polluting that water in the first place or making those birds endangered in the first place? And so I think that is really the beauty of it, is like helping expand that definition a little bit more to make sure you're not so narrowed. And I hope that, if you need help in defining that, I'm happy to do so and try to find more areas of growth. But that is the best way to sort of open that up.
Yeah, thank you. And I think, kind of in a similar sense of the landscape that we're looking at is like, also not thinking about the space over time, because, the places that we're working in, people have lived in, thrived in for thousands for years, for time immemorial. And so that's like a big thing I think about when I'm thinking about my work is, there's a lot of stuff going on in the here and now, but also thinking about, for future generations, what things can we kind of put in place where, let's say we can't do those activities right now, but, maybe in the next 4 years, maybe in the next 10 years, getting those building blocks so that we can work with the next generation, to build up those things. I know that in my work, a lot of the projects that I'm working on, they're ones I don't think I'm going to see get finished in my lifetime, just because they're, restoration of a section that's 1,700 acres. It's a lot of space and a lot of work. And so the one thing that I'm always, constantly doing is looking at, what things can I do right now, and what things can I pass along to the next generation or my colleagues, so that we can, make sure that over time, we're still working in the right direction. And through that, it's the way that, kind of think about time and space and where you are, And then also, I guess, kind of more in terms of where we are right now is being cognizant of what resources and things are out there. So one thing I always take a look at are things like, what current grants are out there, and even if I'm not applying for them, I'm seeing, what things are being funded, what things are what research is there going on right now, so that I can make sure that our programs are keeping up with the times, and if there is a source for funding for the future, that we're ready to apply for that when it's ready. So yeah, that's one thing people can do, I think, right now in the future is, and you can chat with me at my table there later too, on is some of these different sources of grant websites, but also unique websites and places for jobs and resources and newsletters. There's a lot of tribal and indigenous newsletters of trainings and things that you can do right now, as well as coalitions and working groups that, while let's say right now we're not doing so many right now we're building up these networks. And so right now that's one of the big things that I've been seeing is building up, preparing, so that when we can do the get anything shovel ready, so that we can get to the work right away when we can.
So, straight up, as a wildlife photographer, I have not made a single penny from wildlife photography in the last how many ever years I've been doing this. All the money's come in through social media. The way I've thought about it is, okay, if I do wildlife photography, I need a camera, so let's work with a camera brand. Then I need an editing software, so let's work with something like, say, Adobe. It's really hot, so I need a sunscreen. Let's work with a vegan mineral sunscreen brand. So as a content creator, you're consistently thinking about, how do I fit companies that I believe in and that have good ethos and a sustainability message into the work that I already do, rather than trying to fit yourself into a corporation's vision of greenwashing, right? So that would be one thing. The second would be DM people. I've got all my opportunities through DMs, not LinkedIn, not email, literally Instagram DM. That's what I've been doing, and it's always worked out for me. So I would say never be afraid to reach out to people. The worst they could do is just not respond to you, and the best they could do is change your life, I guess. So always go for that path. And I think it's also important to try and figure out which of the four verticals, according to me, these would be the four verticals of ecology you want to be working in, right? I think number one would be like research or science. Number two would be field work. Number three would be storytelling. And then number four would be something more corporate or on the policy side of things. And it's important to identify, okay, here's where my passions or my strengths lie or my skills lie. For me, I'm not good at math, so corporate sort of went out the door. And I've always loved photography, being creative, talking, as you can see. So I was like, social media is a great avenue, and that's where I'm going to start. And I think, like I said, if you think the jobs aren't working for you, be your own job creator, right? I will say being self-employed at 23 has been great, and I'm having a lot of fun. And at the same time, getting to meet a lot of people that are doing some really exciting, innovative things, and not feeling like I'm in a bubble where I'm only interacting with 10 people across 6 months, right? But actually getting to meet 100 or 200 people that are working across the world and being like, here's something I can contribute to, and here's something I would love to be part of.
No, I love that. And I think, on my end, like I'd plug in the California Climate Action Corps. I think I'm getting it wrong. But anyways, it's a fellowship program for people who are trying to transition. And it's an initiative from the state of California that places you in different organizations. And you actually have to apply for the specific organizations that are accompanied with. And like, I know a lot of friends who are in our recent undergrad graduates, and they've been learning a lot. But I would say, like, in the state of like conservation ecology jobs, like even your own friends are networks and people who would actually give you job opportunities, because that's how I worked with Mojave Desert Land Trust last year. And like sometimes the staff or other friends send me job opportunities and they're like, do you know anyone? We're hiring. And I'm like, okay, I think about this person I could send it to. Or my friend actually just got laid off recently, like, let me send this to them. So there's always that thing where it's like, it's not about, always having to connect directly with the director of this organization that they know you, but more like, oh, I connected with the manager here, and now we're friends, and now they're sending me job opportunities for this role for my other friends. So I think that's a really great way for it. But we are at an end of time. So if you all would love to connect with our speakers, please head over to the backside. And thank you so much again for everyone being here.
Amazing. So we are about to begin our lunch and socialization hour. But before we do that, I'm going to need you all to do me a huge favor, and you're going to grab an exit survey from my friend over there. Wave your hand, Jessica. So that is going to be your pass into lunch, and Kiki, over there. That is your pass to get pizza and lunch. You cannot go to the lunch until you get the exit survey. Not to be like that, but it's true. And then basically, before you leave Pavilion today, please fill that out. This data is so important. We are a small business. This is like the only way we're going to be able to keep putting events like this on. Funders and sponsors and all those people, they care about the numbers. They care about, did you actually get something good out of this? And so if you got something good out of it, please write that too. And just a reminder, make sure to tag us on Instagram at Green Jobs Board. And as I said on the agenda, you can connect with all these folks on LinkedIn. Some of them will be around during lunchtime. Mix, mingle, and then we're going to have folks come back around 12:50, closer to 1, to do another grounding session to get into the second half of the day. So yeah, enjoy, get lunch, grab an exit survey, and we'll see you soon.